Well, today I'm going to try to explain a few things about the built-in black tank flush that's on your Alpine, and what I personally think about it and why I don't recommend using it unless you do a few things to make it so that it won't leak and flood your Alpine. If you don't make some changes like I suggest in the video, I guarantee you that sooner or later you'll be standing out here with your hose hooked up to your black tank flush. Water's running, you got the black tank pulled open, and you think everything is good, and all of a sudden you hear the wife holler, and the water is coming out down the steps from the bathroom or wherever your bathroom might be located at, and you are really not going to be happy. Your water panel may look different than mine. This is a 2014 Alpine. So we have just the sewer connection here and the fresh water and tank fill here. I've modified the OEM old 4-position valve to the new 3-position all brass valve. If you still have this old 4-way valve, you really need to get the new 3-way brass because you can't get parts for the old one. But onto the black tank flush. The idea is that you hook a hose up to here, and you run the water for about 5 minutes. There's a sprayer that is on the end of this line that runs up to the black tank, and it's supposed to spray water into the black tank from the top of the tank and rinse the tank out, and then you turn the water off and you open this up and dump it out, and life is good if it works. Instead of using the built-in flusher on this 2014 Alpine, for the last 9 years I've been using the Valterra King Flush, and it's got a clear adapter, which after some years of use, it's not quite as clear as it was, but I can still see the solids and such when they come out, and I know when I look at that when the tank is actually clean. It has an anti-siphon valve connection right here where you connect the RV park water hose up to. The anti-siphon feature that's built in here prevents any cross-contamination back into the RV park's water system. And so for those that are all worried about the legal aspects of it, this anti-siphon valve is built in and certified by King Flush Valterra. Does just fine. The thing that I like with this setup is I have an external gate valve, and so what that means is when I open this cap up with this valve down, if I have one of the internal tank valves that's leaking, with this extra gate valve out here, guess what? I don't get any crap comes out on my feet or gray water or anything else. And believe you, nothing will upset you anymore than when you take this cap off, if you don't realize it and your black tank has been leaking, and you take that cap off and out comes 10 gallons of urine all over your shoes. It's not a good experience. Been there, done that, and you don't want to do that. Many of the Alpines, the black tank flush has, well, let me restate that. On all the Alpines, the black tank flush line has what is called an anti-siphon valve. Some people call it a vacuum breaker. They're pretty much one and the same. The difference is the black tank anti-siphon valve is never directly connected to the Alpine's water system. So there's no way that you're ever going to cross-contaminate your Alpine water system just by using the black tank washout port. However, what I wanted to show you was on my Alpine, we're in the basement, and we're looking back behind this back wall, and you can't see it, and I'm not going to take the wall off to show it to you, but way back up inside here is where my anti-siphon valve for the black tank is located. It's up above the floor level, and if that valve was to leak while I'm standing out there using that black tank sprayer, I'm not going to know it until water starts pulling out of the belly, and I'm not going to be happy. So that's another reason why I don't use it. I have eliminated it with 2 shark bite fittings. You don't have to eliminate one. You can leave it in place, but upgrade it to an all brass valve if you've just got to have an anti-siphon valve in your black tank flush. And if you don't believe in using the nice Valterra King Flush that I use, As some people say, well, it won't clean the tanks out. And I can tell you that in 9 years, I have never had a black tank that isn't clean. And the nice thing is also, I can selectively rinse out the gray tank for the shower, and I can rinse out the gray tank for the kitchen. And I can tell you that after every trip, when we get ready to unhook and head home, when I wash the kitchen gray tank out, I always get coffee grounds out of there, and I get food particles and things like that. And you could run the sink all day long in the kitchen, and you're never going to get all that crap out. But if you use the Valterra King Flush, like I'm recommending that you use, you can force that water up in there with the gray tank valve open, and any coffee grounds, food particles, stuff like that that's laying down in there, it's going to suspend that in enough water quickly enough that it's going to all drain out. So that's my thoughts on that. Okay, so we're up inside the Alpine 2014 model, and my particular Alpine, the bathroom's located upstairs in the bedroom area, and looking at the bathroom sink. And if you have an anti-siphon valve that's located in the bathroom sink area, it's going to be located way up behind inside. We'll put a little light on the subject, and you'll see a blue line back here and a red line. That's my hot and cold water lines, and of course the sewer line that drains directly into the black tank. The typical location for the anti-siphon valve, and it's usually going to be a black plastic, it's going to be located way up high here, and I'll show you in a couple of still shots of what it actually looks like. And I can tell you that with that anti-siphon valve in place, you hook your hose up outside, turn it on, and the cabinets are closed, the wife is inside doing whatever, and you're out there, you've dumped the tank, the black tank, and you've got the hose hooked up and you're flushing it. And when you hear the wife holler and scream that water is running down the steps, you're not going to be happy. And that plastic anti-siphon valve, I cannot tell you how many hundreds, if not thousands, of pictures and videos and people I've talked with at places I've stayed that have flooded their fifth wheel because they didn't know that valve was there, and they didn't replace it with a good brass valve or eliminate the stupid thing altogether. And so while we're in here in the bathroom, we'll take a couple of more steps. There was some discussion on the legalities of anti-siphon valves and vacuum breakers and things like that, and to clear up maybe some misinformation that I might have put out, and it's due to I'm using terminology that some people use differently. To me, the anti-siphon valve on an RV always refers to what's hooked up to the black tank flush. It's a vacuum breaker valve, yes, but it's always called the anti-siphon valve, has been for the last 45 years. A typical RV toilet is going to have a vacuum breaker valve, and you might be able to see it and you might not. On my Dometic 320 toilet, you cannot see it, and but it's there, and it's underneath these two. If I pull this cover off, which I'll do here in a second, so you can actually see the vacuum breaker valve. The purpose of that vacuum breaker valve, if you look at the blue line down here, that is the water, cold water, coming in from the city water connection. That water feeds through this valve and then up here to this valve located up here. And this valve, which you can barely see, and we'll take the cover off of it here in a minute, you can see where the hose runs up to it, and you can see where right here it actually plugs into the toilet. There's a rubber gasket right here, and the vacuum breaker plugs in. And the purpose of this, since this water line is connected to this toilet, then yes, by the code, plumbing code, and a few other different regulations, there has to be a vacuum breaker to prevent cross-contamination to the potable water in the living or dwelling fixture, which in this case is an RV. It also is supposed to prevent cross-contamination to the feed source of the water, which in this case would be an RV park. And so we have the toilet opened up, and you can see there's some antifreeze down inside. I always keep a little antifreeze down in here. It keeps that bowl seal lubricated, and you can see where the antifreeze had come out. But anyways, that vacuum breaker is mounted back in behind here. So we'll take this off so you can see what the vacuum breaker does. We'll take a quick look down here at the toilet valve. And this toilet valve, when you press this down to flush your toilet, when you release it, don't let this snap back up. That's the #1 cause of cracking and busting that valve, is people have this valve pushed all the way down, and when they flush it, they let the pedal snap back up, and 4 or 5 times of doing that, and this assembly is all plastic, and the valve is mounted inside where my finger is pointing, and you're going to crack this valve. So don't do that. Let it up gently. You'll have way less problems. So what I'm going to do now is take these 2 little cover caps off. And if you look down in here, you'll see 2 plastic screws. We'll take those off so we can remove this cover so you can see the vacuum breaker on this toilet. Okay, so now I have removed the 2 screws that hold on the toilet seat assembly. So now when I pull this off, you can see what's called a vacuum breaker. And you can see maybe back here, there is a rubber O-ring, and this vacuum breaker plugs in to the back of the toilet. And what happens is when you press down on this pedal, there's a little switch inside here that pushes in, opens up the water valve, lets the water flow from here up through here, and comes up through here and squirts out all along in here to rinse your toilet out so that you can flush it. Located inside of here, and you can't see it, is a small rubber diaphragm, and that rubber diaphragm will pop up when the water pressure comes in and seals, and so that the water flows in here. If this diaphragm didn't seal, the minute you push this toilet pedal down, you're going to have water gushing right out the back of this. So if you ever have water coming from the back of your toilet, this is the place to look, and I've shown you where it's at. Again, this is called a vacuum breaker. It's on every Dometic series toilet that's out there. And before I put the toilet seat back on, and the wife already came out and looked and said, "What are you doing now?" Anyways, she loves it when I'm messing around with the Alpine. You want to make sure that when you winterize your fifth wheel, that you blow it out with air, is the way that I do it, and then I back it up with antifreeze. That way I know there's no residual water up in here so that this valve doesn't freeze and crack. If it freezes and cracks come springtime, when I turn the water on, the first time I press this foot pedal, the water's going to run up through here to come into the toilet. This assembly is going to be cracked, and I'm going to have a geyser back here. These are very reliable valves. They are not like that piece of crap black anti-siphon valve that's located up under the sink on most Alpines for the black tank flush. This is a quality assembly. If you properly take care of it, it's rarely going to give you troubles. Again, this one is 9 years old. I rarely put myself on video, but we'll give this a try for a minute. And what we're going to show you now is what that OEM factory installed black tank flusher looks like, and I'll show you the sprayer, and I'll show you what can happen to yours if you let your black tank get a little bit too full, and that so-called sprayer gets all plugged up. And so next time you go to hook your hose up out there and you're washing your black tank out and you think you're cleaning it all out, you can see by these still shots we'll show here in a minute that you're not really cleaning anything at all. And so hopefully with those still shots that we showed of the black tank sprayer, you'll get an idea of what the OEM installed black tank flusher looks like, where it's located at. It's located up high on the black tank on one of the side walls, and it's got a little sprayer with some holes on it that protrude through the black tank. And so when you hook your hose up outside and you turn the water on, the theory is that water is going to go through the hose, go through that anti-siphon valve, and then go through that black tank sprayer and hopefully rinse your tank out. And if the holes aren't all plugged up and if the anti-siphon valve doesn't leak, it'll rinse a lot of the stuff out. But I can tell you, you're not going to get the volume of water from that sprayer that you will by using a Valterra King flusher. You open up that 4-inch line or 3-inch line on that gate valve and open the black tank handle up and turn that hose on, and it shoves that water up in there, you know, under 55, 60 psi of pressure, and you got a lot of volume going in there, and it fills the bottom of the tank up and suspends anything that's still laying in that tank. And then you turn the water off, and then all that suspended material, toilet paper and solids and such, it will float right out. And in 8 or 9 years of using it on the Alpine, I've never had a problem with a black tank not clean. Plus I can clean my gray tanks out as well, which is important to me.